Today you will see the final episode in the series about the Arab-Khazar confrontation. After making peace, both empires plunged into new conflicts while facing internal and external challenges. This led to irreversible consequences that proved disastrous for both sides of the conflict. So, you are on the Amazing History channel, where you will learn a lot of interesting things about the history of the ancient world, the medieval East, and much more. Before I continue, I want to thank the first sponsors of the channel on YouTube and Patreon. Your support is very important and motivates me to create new episodes. Your likes, subscriptions, and of course kind comments also motivate me. Let's get to the topic of this episode. The new Abbasid Caliph al-Mansur tried to strengthen relations with the Khazars. To do this, he ordered his governor in Transcaucasia to ask for the hand of the Khazar Khagan Bagatur's daughter. He agreed and sent the princess south with a 10,000-strong retinue and lavish gifts. She got married, converted to Islam, and bore the governor 2 sons. Everything seemed to be going well, but after more than 2 years, the princess and her attendants mysteriously died. The enraged father blamed the Arab governor for this, and in 762 invaded Transcaucasia with a huge army. With fire and sword, the Khazars swept through Caucasian Albania, Armenia, and Iberia, capturing many prisoners and rich spoils. After that, Bagatur calmed down and his army returned home. Clashes between the Arabs and the Khazars would continue in the future, but there would be no more large-scale wars between them. Soon they would face new threats that would divert their resources to fighting them. And one of these challenges would be the rise of Rus. Initially, the rulers of early Rus paid tribute to the Khazars and were their important trading partners. But after the Caliphate stopped being a threat to both Khazaria and Byzantium, the Greeks began to look for other alliances in the steppes to weaken the Khazars and prevent them from becoming a potential threat. In the 880s, the Byzantines supported the raids of the Alans and Pechenegs in order to weaken Khazar power. The Rus also turned out to be an ideal partner for the Byzantines, despite the fact that in 860 they carried out a devastating raid on Constantinople. Gradually, with the help of diplomats and financial support, the Eastern Roman Empire began to push out Khazar influence in the lands of the Rus and replace it with their own. Although the Khazars withstood most of these attacks, during this period they lost their influence over Kiev, where power was seized by the Novgorod prince Oleg. This event marked the founding of Kievan Rus, a new powerful player on the geopolitical stage of Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, on the southern border of Khazaria, the Caliphate was slowly disintegrating, and new independent Muslim principalities were emerging, which added tension to the region. Thus, in 912, a 10,000-strong Muslim army from Shirvan was defeated by Khazar troops as a result of an unsuccessful invasion attempt. The first outbreak of conflict between Rus, Khazaria, and the Caliphate occurred in 913 when a large fleet of the Rus sailed into the Kerch Strait, which was controlled by the Khazars. This campaign is well documented by the Arab historian al-Masudi. It is reported that a fleet of 500 ships took part in it, each carrying 100 men, which is quite possibly an exaggeration. Having promised half of the loot to the Khazar Khagan, the Rus received permission for safe passage into the Caspian Sea, which was most likely an act of retribution by the Khazar Khagan for a recent provocation by the Muslims from Shirvan. The Rus crossed the Don River to the Volga, and from there they went down to the Caspian Sea. The raiders first began to devastate the wealthy regions of Tabaristan and Shirvan. Baku was also plundered. The inhabitants were clearly not prepared for such an attack. Al-Masudi writes, The peoples living near this sea cried out in terror, for since ancient times no enemy had ever attacked them here. And only the ships of merchants and fishermen had ever come here. The news of the attacks spread quickly, causing outrage not only in the Caliphate, but also among the numerous Muslim population of the Khazar Khaganate. They appealed to their ruler, asking for permission to attack the Rus as they returned home along the Volga and to avenge the murders committed in Persia. By this time, the military power of the Khaganate mainly depended on Muslim mercenaries from Khorasan, who even provided security for the Khagan himself. Thus, willingly or not, for the sake of stability, he had to agree, and he decided to break his treaty with the Rus. Thus, an army of 15,000 men consisting of both Muslims and Christians blocked the raiders' way back near Itil. And the Rus landed their ships and formed battle lines. The battle lasted for 3 days, which led to the defeat of the weakened army. But its remnants still managed to make it home safely. Doma. Despite this defeat, the strength of Rus was far from broken. The Khazars lost a significant part of their profitable trade with Rus and, in return, gained another powerful enemy. For a while, the main trading partners of Khazaria became the Volga Bulgars, who had close ties with the Caliphate. The Arabs supported their new Muslim allies as a counterbalance to the Khazars. Although the period of decline and disintegration that the Caliphate was experiencing meant that there would be no new invasions of the Caucasus, the diplomatic mission of the Caliphate led by Ibn Fadlan and its funding of the Volga Bulgars would play an important role in the fall of Khazaria. Ibn Fadlan successfully accomplished the task of bringing the Volga Bulgars into the fold of Islam. And the fortress financed by the Arabs reduced the power of the Khazar Khagan over his Bulgar vassals. Soon, Muslim merchants took over the trade routes in the land of their fellow believers, the Bulgars. This, combined with the disruption of trade by the Oghuz in the east and the Rus in the west, led to a sharp decline in vital trade revenues, and a reduction in its ability to maintain and equip its armies. At the same time, the rule of Romanos Lakapenos in Constantinople and his aggressive persecution of Jews in Byzantium marked the final collapse of the Byzantine-Khazar alliance. In the 920s, direct clashes occurred in Crimea between Khazar and Byzantine troops. This was followed by further contacts between Byzantium and the Pechenegs and the Rus. And as we can see, Byzantium began to be constantly subjected to raids by the Rus, the Pechenegs, the Oghuz, and the Alans. And Byzantium itself played no small part in these attacks, although there is no direct evidence of this. But indirect evidence points exactly to this. For example, in his treatise on governing the empire, Emperor Constantine VII advises future emperors to wage war against the Khazars through Alan and Oghuz intermediaries. Meanwhile, the Caliphate was collapsing on its own. In the 940s, the power vacuum there was filled by the Shiite Ubayyid dynasty, which quickly spread from Fars and overshadowed the Caliph in Baghdad, reducing him to a vassal. At the same time, independent Muslim rulers in the territory of modern Azerbaijan continued to fight against the Khazars. However, the figure whose name would become the most prominent during the fall of Khazaria was the warlike Kievan prince Svyatoslav. The story of this ruler deserves a separate video. We have already made an episode about his mother, Princess Olga, on this channel. So, after he began to rule independently, Svyatoslav started his famous Khazar campaign. In 965, he captured Sarkel, the Khazar fortress on the Don River, which had held back Rus for a long time. And 4 years later, Itil fell, which marked the end of the Khazar Khaganate. The Arab-Khazar wars stopped the Arab expansion into Eastern Europe and for a long time drew significant Muslim forces away from the borders of Byzantium. Thanks to this, Byzantium was able to maintain control over Asia Minor for some time. However, the long confrontation came to nothing and became detrimental for both sides. That's all from me. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.